All right, guys, today is Monday, June 12th, 2023, and I'm about to get started on my trunk upholstery. Well, I was fixing to, but I was going to move the four-door 55 out underneath the carport. That way I'd have all that room in that bay in there, and I was going to pretty much do some foaming and upholstering on my trunk panels, but it's not going to happen because it's supposed to start raining here in about 2 hours. So I decided I would go ahead and finalize this rear board by building the boxes on the back so you don't see behind the hinges or around those and stuff. So I had a buddy of mine call me, and he's got a 57 Chevy sedan, four-door sedan. He's wanting to do his trunk, and like mine, and he wanted to know if he could borrow my templates. And then these templates, I have templates for a sedan here for the sides. I don't have the back one, but the sedan ones did not fit this car. I don't know why, but it's different in hardtop than sedan, I guess. But they were kind of close. I mean, you could kind of, probably put tape along the edge to fill up the gap or whatever. But I told him he'd be better off just putting poster board in there, putting it up against it, tracing it out, and then go in and start trimming and testing and trimming and testing. It's time consuming, but it'll be tailored to fit your car. So then he asked me if I wanted to sell any of my door panel stainless stuff, any of the straight pieces, because he didn't have any of those. And I told him I didn't really want to sell any of that stuff because probably might be building more Tri-Fis in the future, who knows, but I've still got to have stuff for my wife's car as well. So I didn't really want to sell any of that. And anyway, he didn't want to buy a new crest for the car, for the panels. He was just wanting to put some trim on it. And I told him that, you're not going to be able to find one long piece of stainless that's that long for the back of that. That's why I had to put the crest in there, because that way I could, use two separate pieces that I trimmed down. But you're just not going to get a piece that long that matches the original, from an original car, I'll say. So I gave him an option of what he could do. And I said, if you have like a crest from a, anything, a 56, a 50, 55, whatever, the 55s, they had bigger crests. But what you could do, if you can find a used one, it maybe the chrome will be pitted, you can sand it down, prime it, and block it, and have it, painted up nice, like black or something, whatever your upholstery color is to match it. And if you wanted a trunk light, because he didn't want to do this option either, he's trying to do it on a really, really low budget, which I kind of did on my car too, because I already had some of this stuff here. But what I told him he could do, and you guys could do this too, is take the plastic insert out of your original crest, because it's probably going to be ruined anyway. Put it on a piece of ceiling light tile from Lowe's, trace it out. Use a cutoff wheel when you cut this out. You basically got to burn through it. If you tried using a jigsaw, it'll just crack it. But this is a ceiling light tile at Lowe's, and you can get big sheets or small sheets. And I want to say the small sheet's like $7. It is bigger than this. This is a remnant, but it has a kind of rough feeling on the back, and it's smooth on the front. But you could basically cut an insert out that fits in here, and bend your tabs over. And if your tabs break off, you could use some clear two-part epoxy and just kind of put a little bit around it. And then you'd have a clear lens in here that you could make a light out of. So you'd have a light up crest. Now there's a couple of options you could do. You could build a box off the back of your panel, like a little bitty thin, shallow box on the back. And then you could put a little LED light strip. This is a little stick-on LED light strip that I got from eBay. I got 4 of them. I don't remember what I paid. They were very inexpensive, like 12 bucks with free shipping. But there's 4 LED lights here. There's also this style, which you can get for boats. This has a chrome cover on it, but anyway, this is an LED, and it pretty much casts light downward. I'm going to be putting these on top of the kick panels, and that way when my wife opens the door, this will shine light down there in the floorboard for her. And then there's these right here. These are also for like a boat, cabin cruiser, a yacht or something like that, just a universal 12 volt. Now this is actually a metal cover. These are plastic. But you can take these off, and you can get these. I want to say I got these in a 2-pack, and I want to say these are like $8 or something. This stuff's not very expensive. And in your little box, you could put 2 of these, or one of these light strips back there, and it would basically light up. So you'd have a crest that lights up. That is originally what I was going to do in the beginning on this car, but I decided to go with the 55 hardtop dome lights because it's 55 hardtop only. So to me, that was just a little bit more detail. And then have the because I shaved my crests on my hood and trunk. I don't have any, so this was kind of the way to get my crest back in a sense. Now this is for a 56 Chevy Bel Air trunk. This is a shorter one. The 55 is bigger. And keep in mind, if you go to use a trunk one, the trunk, like a 55 trunk, it's going to have a big cutout in the bottom for your fingers, which you could, pull your panel that way, be kind of neat, but I just don't like that look on that panel. So there is options that you could do if you wanted to, do something like that and be pretty unique. I have never seen that done with the light lens. I'm not saying it hasn't been, I haven't seen it, but that would be a neat alternative, you know what I mean? So I am going to get after it. I guess I'm going to get started on my little boxes on the trunk hinge to hide all that ugly back there. All right, so I got some really thin 22 gauge steel here. It's been on my shelf. So I built a template to go on. This is like the piece that'll go on there to hide the hinge pockets so you don't see them basically. Now with this being at an angle, I had to make this at kind of an odd shape. So anyway, I mocked it all up and I had it taped to that panel and fitted up in there. It looks like it's going to fit pretty good. So I, at that point, transferred it to steel. So I'm going to cut this out and then I'm going to take it to my sheet metal brake and I'm going to get these bends started, and then I can finish it off with my flat jaw pliers because this is really thin. It'll bend real easy. But I went ahead and drew out a couple little boxes here, and those I'll actually bend over. They'll drill a hole in them and bend them over, and that's going to be my screw tabs. So these will actually screw onto the back of this masonite. And I'm going to do it the same, drill holes and countersink them for some countersink screws to go through and basically bolt on. But it'll hide it from having that big gap. Now I've bent up the little filler piece here out of that sheet metal, and it is a really, really odd shape the way I had to make it. But this panel curves at an angle, so that's why it kind of looks funny. But that panel, curves in, and when this is twisted in, it looks a little bit more straight up in there. But all I'm trying to do is fill that void so you don't see back in there. All right, so I got this one pretty much mounted. It bends pretty easy because it's real thin sheet metal, but I actually need to tweak it just a little bit, but I'm going to wait until it's upholstered. So what I ended up having to do to be able to mount this on there after it's upholstered, because I want to upholster this separately and upholster this separately and then put this on the back, is I had to countersink it, put some countersink screws in, 832s, and then I actually put a nut on it to hold the screw in place, so that way there'll be a stud in this after it's wrapped, because I wouldn't be able to put any tool on this to hold it tight just to put a nut on there to put this piece on, because this is going to be upholstered. There'd be no access to it because of the material. So I put a nut on the bottom, and I put a little kick in the ears on that, kind of bend them up and then over so it gives it enough room. And then I do have, after I get that tweaked, it's going to have just enough space probably to, for material wrap to go around it, and then put another nut on it. But I think it'll work pretty good. It's very odd, but keep in mind it is curved, so this panel is going to be in there curved. All right, so got it installed. Looks like it might work pretty good. Keep you from being able to see back in behind there like you could before. This will have to go in a little bit more. I still got to move that bracket back just a little bit, but it should still clear just fine. If it doesn't, I can grind it down a little bit. Well, initially I didn't want to add any more L brackets to this. I've got 5 L brackets on the bottom down there, and that's why that has such a nice curve. So up here I just put one here and one on each end. So I ended up moving these brackets, these end brackets, in just a little bit. I moved them over and moved them in, and then I put it back up there, and the problem I ran into is it's actually hitting the trunk rods, and I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, I had to pretty much put them back where I had them, but I did grind the trunk rods just a little bit. So I'm going to show you what I'm running into is I wanted this panel underneath that lip, so when this is 1/4 inch foamed and upholstered, this is underneath. You know, it's going to be almost even with that flange, and that's what I was striving for. This right here is pretty much even with it right now before I get the 1/4 inch foam on both ends. So what that's going to do is this end's going to be sticking out on both ends with upholstery, and it's going to drive me crazy. So what I just figured out is if I go ahead and put a bracket here and a bracket here and move that bracket out a little bit, it moves it in. If you can see that moving in. So what it's doing pretty much is it's just trying to pretty much do a straight shot from here to here on both sides instead of having a nice curve, because the L bracket's putting tension there. So I'm going to have to go ahead and get in there and mask off the floor again and get under there and put 2 more L brackets on, and I have them here. So I was just hoping I wouldn't have to do it, but I'm going to have to. Dang it. Oh well. Alright, so since this cannot come loose, because once it's upholstered I won't have any access to them screws anymore, so what I did was I took the nuts almost all the way off. They were just barely on the ends on both sides, and I turned this upside down to where this part was pretty much hanging, and I put some Loctite on that paper there and put it on a toothpick, and I went in there and put it right on the edge because I didn't want to get it all on the threads, you know what I mean? So then I flipped it back over and tightened them up. So now these are Loctited, so they should stay put, because when I bolt my pieces on here, I had to put a little kick in them brackets and to you know, take up some space so this would fit closer to this, and that way I can put my other nuts on here. So anyway, just little, it's this little bitty dinky stuff like this that it takes forever to do, but I'm trying to be thorough, and I'm trying to be, you know, pleased with the end result overall. But you know, when I go to put these on, I'll tighten them down, and if I ever have to take these off, I want to be able to just unscrew that nut and it not, you know, take everything else loose. But I'm hoping the Loctite will do it for me, hopefully. Alright guys, so this is the final test fit for this. So it's pretty much all day long has been, at least 3/4 of the day, has been finalizing this and getting everything to where I'm overall happy with it and ready to upholster it. So man, what a mess. I love it. It's curved, it contours the, you know, the flange back here for the trunk seal. I love it. It sticks out a little bit out here on the ends. It's just going to have to be the way it is, because I'm not grinding any more off them rods. I don't know if I showed that in that other clip or not. So I ground those down just a little bit. They're not even halfway, but anyway, just enough to get that taken care of. I'm going to have to put some paint on that. But I installed the other brackets, and I ended up working out. So I figured out that when you get a lot of Velcro, oh crap, I still need to put my Velcro strips here and here for them other two. I forgot about that. So I guess it ain't the last time I'm putting it in. But anyway, I found out the more Velcro strips you have on that, the harder it is to take out. So, which is fine. It's easily removable, and that's what I like about it. So, you know, if I have to, in a hurry, run back here and cut the battery off for some reason, that panel will come off really easy. Whereas if I'd have done those door panel clips, it would have taken a lot more effort to get it out of there. There's been some suggestions. I even had a text from one of my friends saying to use magnets. I think 3 people have mentioned magnets so far for this instead of Velcro. And I got to tell you, I'm not keen on the idea of gluing magnets to this masonite. The back of this board is, every time I pull the Velcro, it pulls like you can't re-stick those again. So the idea is when you use the Velcro, you can staple these pieces on. There's no way these are coming off. I like to never got the end pieces off because that stuff's so sticky. But I also have them wrapped around the back side. So these, you know, could potentially pull off. But when I staple them, they're not ever coming off there. I'm not ever going to have to worry about it. There's no mess, you know what I mean? So I would have had to, I mean, in other words, I I would have had to go buy glue to glue the magnets on there, or epoxy or whatever. I'd have had to buy those magnets, and I don't know how much those are. So all that stuff I'd have had to order. So I just used Velcro. Nothing wrong with Velcro. All right, here's my little metal brackets I made, and Scotch brotted them down, blew them off, wiped them down with some wax and grease remover, and I just used some of this stuff. It's just stuff I had here. So they got a pretty decent coat of black primer on them. Those will be upholstered, but I'm just going to upholster the inside of them, and I'll roll around the edge a little bit, but you won't see the back of this until the panel comes. Alright guys, stainless trim got sanded and polished, and then I went over it with Mother's Mag and aluminum polish just to kind of, you know, see if I missed anything, and I actually did. There's a few of them that has some scratches here and there on them, so I'm going to go back and do another round spot sanding and then spot buffing on the buffer, and then they should be good to go. I got the dome lights. I actually used my Scotch disc on my 90-degree angle grinder, and I went in there and took that chrome pretty much off, and there was places that had some pretty bad pits on one of them, so I ended up mixing up some 2K urethane primer in the spray gun, and I shot I think 3 heavy coats of that on there. So I'm gonna let these sit in here all night tonight in the shade, and tomorrow afternoon I'm gonna set these out in direct sunlight and let that urethane primer cook a little bit. It was pretty much all I had, so I had to just basically used what I had. I got these pieces, these inserts. These are painted, that's primer black. I'm just going to leave them because I'm going to be upholstering them. So the panel board's finalized. All 3 pieces of the panels are done. So those need, probably tomorrow I can get them foamed and then upholstered. And then I can put the stainless trim on, and I don't know, maybe tomorrow afternoon I can paint these. Just kind of depends on how well that sands. If it's gumming up the paper, it'll have to set longer. So that's a pretty good day's work right there. Man, that was there was a whole lot more work that I had to do just when I thought I was just about done. So anyway, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. I haven't checked the weather. I don't know if it's going to rain tomorrow. If it rains, I won't see you tomorrow. But if it doesn't, see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.